What if I told you that sometimes the most devastating revenge isn't screaming, fighting, or exposing someone online, but complete and total silence? Stick around because this story will change how you think about walking away from toxic people forever. Picture this. You're 9 years old, and instead of getting an apology for something that wasn't even your fault, you get handed a belt. That was my reality. By the time I turned 17, I'd had enough. But here's the twist. I didn't fight back with anger or drama. I fought back with something far more powerful: absolute silence. Growing up in my household was like living in a twisted kingdom where respect only flowed one direction. My brother Jake could destroy anything he wanted, and somehow it would still be my fault for not preventing it. Being born a girl in that house meant being born into servitude. Boys were treated like kings, girls were treated like unpaid staff. The rules were simple but brutal. Earn your place. Stay useful. Don't question anything. I heard be useful more than I heard my own name. Meanwhile, Jake never touched a dish, never folded a single piece of clothing, never cleaned anything. He had his own private bathroom while I scrubbed both his and the family one. When I asked why the rules were different for him, my father's response was always the same. He's a boy. You'll get it when you're older. Well, I'm older now, and I finally do get it. It wasn't about gender at all. It was about power and control. Everything changed on one particular Sunday morning. I'd just finished ironing Jake's clothes for some party I wasn't even allowed to attend. Exhausted and sweating, I dragged myself downstairs only to find him chugging the last glass of orange juice like he owned the place. Seriously? Couldn't you save me some? I asked, still catching my breath from all that ironing. He laughed in my face. Be grateful I don't make you squeeze the oranges by hand. Something inside me just snapped. Not dramatically, not loudly. I simply said, do it yourself. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake stared at me like I'd grown a second head. My mother's eyes went wide with shock. What did you just say to your brother? She asked, her voice dangerously quiet. I'm done, I said, my heart pounding. I'm not his personal servant anymore. Period. That's when my father appeared like a storm cloud, already reaching for that drawer. You know the one. The belt drawer. He didn't ask questions. He didn't care about context. In his mind, I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. You've forgotten who you are in this house, he said, wrapping that leather around his hand like it was an old friend. My mother didn't intervene. Jake watched like it was entertainment. But when that belt connected with my ribs, something inside me broke and healed at the exact same time. The pain was sharp, but it was also clarifying. Crystal clear. That night, I packed everything I owned into a sleeping bag, grabbed the $3 from my drawer, and walked out with a cracked rib and a completely clear conscience. No dramatic goodbye letter. No stolen belongings. I didn't even take the toothbrush they made me share with visiting relatives to save space. I ended up in my friend Maya's basement. Her parents weren't perfect, but they looked at me with something I'd never experienced at home: genuine concern. Not disappointment, not judgment, just human worry about another human being. It was revolutionary. My body healed gradually. The bruises faded. My breathing got easier. The scabs disappeared. But the silence from my family, that cut deeper than any belt ever could. Days turned into weeks, and not a single call. Not even to yell at me. In their minds, I'd simply ceased to exist. I was dust they'd swept under the rug. But here's where it gets interesting. If I was nothing to them, then nothing is exactly what I decided to give them back. Not scandal, not public humiliation, not social media drama. Just pure, weaponized silence. See, my parents never hit to hurt, at least not in their twisted logic. They hit to remind me of my place. So when I disappeared, they weren't heartbroken. They were offended. Like a hammer discovering the nail had developed legs and walked away. 3 weeks later, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother: Jake has an awards dinner and his suits aren't pressed. Come home and stop this childish behavior. Not are you okay? Not we miss you. Just immediate demands for domestic labor. I screenshot it and didn't reply. A week later, another message from my father. This tantrum ends now. Nobody in the real world will tolerate your attitude. Come apologize and maybe we'll let you earn your way back. Let me. Those two words made me laugh out loud. I saved that message too, not for revenge, just as a reminder of exactly why I'd left. By then, Maya's parents had converted their storage room into a bedroom for me. I had almost nothing, but I felt safer than I'd ever felt in my life. And in that quiet space, I started really listening to myself for the first time. I remembered being the kid who memoized grocery lists, knew exactly how much detergent went in each load of laundry, kept track of everyone's schedules. My parents used to brag at church. Our daughter is so responsible, she practically manages the entire household. They were right. I did manage everything. So I started documenting it all, every single task I'd been handling since I was 10 years old. Cooking, cleaning, scheduling, shopping, ironing, meal planning, scrubbing Jake's bathroom, cleaning his vomit after parties I couldn't attend. It wasn't just a chore list, it was an invoice. And they owed big time. A month later, I ran into our old neighbor Mrs. Peterson while helping Maya's mom in their garden. She gave me a concerned look. Is your mother all right, honey? I saw her struggling with groceries last week. She said Jake was too busy to help out. I just shrugged. I'm sure she'll figure it out. That's when I learned they were crumbling. Jake had been late to school for 2 straight weeks. My father was showing up to work looking like he'd slept in his clothes. My mother had actually asked their church for meal assistance, claiming she had a back injury. But the best part, they were too proud to admit I was gone. They told everyone I'd left early for college, getting life experience. Meanwhile, their perfectly organized world was collapsing without the invisible foundation I'd been providing for years. I didn't need to write exposé articles. I didn't need to blast them on social media. I just needed to do absolutely nothing. Because I wasn't just their daughter. I was the engine that kept their entire machine running. And now that engine was gone. After 2 months of silence, I did something final. I dropped off a box on their doorstep. Every guilt trip birthday card they'd ever given me. The cheap necklace my mother once gave me to remind you we didn't have to keep you. Every chore list they'd ever taped to the refrigerator with my name on it. No note. The box said everything. Maya's cousin lived nearby and started giving me updates I never asked for. My mother struggling alone in the garden. Jake dragging garbage bags of laundry to the laundromat. My father using a walking cane after some kind of incident. I'd nod politely and keep studying for my nursing classes. I didn't need their struggles explained to me. I just needed them to feel them. The real test came when my grandmother died. Not the mean one who used to slap me for eating before the boys were served. This was my father's mother. The only person in that entire family who ever looked me in the eye and said, "You deserve so much better." She never protected me, but she saw me. That was enough. I showed up to the funeral alone. Simple black clothes, no makeup, completely composed. Heads turned. People whispered. My mother froze when she spotted me. My father looked like he'd aged 2 decades since I'd last seen him. They didn't approach me, not because they didn't want to, but because they literally didn't know how. Their silence was louder than mine had ever been. After the service, my cousin Rebecca approached me outside. "They are falling apart," she said quietly. "They are actually afraid of you now." I looked at her calmly. Good. They should be. People are saying you've become heartless. Cold. I smiled slightly. They train me well. Rebecca wasn't amused. "They are selling the house," she said. My fingers twitched, but not with joy. Just completion. "Not for money," she continued. "They just can't handle it anymore. The routines, the chores, all those empty rooms. They say it feels haunted." It was haunted. Haunted by every meal I'd cooked, every shirt I'd folded, every insult I'd swallowed with a smile. Now those walls echoed with everything they'd tried to forget. 3 months later, I graduated from my nursing program. Simple ceremony, white scrubs, my name tag pinned to my chest. Maya sat in the front row cheering. No one else was invited. My family wasn't dead, but in my life, they were buried deep. And I kept the shovel. Years passed. I moved into my own apartment, small, warm, quiet, mine. I never changed my number, but they never used it. Occasionally, I'd hear updates through mutual acquaintances. Jake bouncing between jobs, getting evicted for trashing an apartment. My father no longer driving after collapsing from exhaustion at a grocery store. My mother joining online support groups, posting about the burden of ungrateful children. Let them live in that story where I'm the villain. The truth was heavier than they could carry anyway. I was the one who held their world together. And when I walked away, they didn't just lose a daughter. They lost the invisible structure that kept their house breathing. They raised me like a tool, so I let them rust without me. They treated me as disposable, so I disposed of them first. When people ask why I don't visit family, I simply say, I left with nothing, and that's exactly what I gave back. Now when I wash dishes, they are mine. When I wake up early, it's for my job, not for some screaming brother who couldn't tie his own shoes. When I do laundry, it's 2 loads a week, not 20. And every Friday night, I take myself out to dinner. Just me. No one to serve. No one watching to make sure I'm being useful. I don't want the kind of revenge that burns bright and fades fast. I want the kind that echoes forever. And every peaceful day I live in my quiet apartment, that echo gets a little louder in whatever empty, crumbling house they are trying to manage without me. The most powerful weapon isn't always the loudest one. Sometimes it's the complete absence of sound. Sometimes the most devastating thing you can give toxic people is exactly what they gave you, nothing at all. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what country you're watching from. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message about the power of strategic silence, share this video with them. Sometimes walking away isn't giving up, it's the strongest move you can make.